Greetings from Julian Barnett in London, and here I am standing in Regent Square Gardens. Why am I in Regent Square Gardens? Because in a way it's so normal. It is your classic communal garden, London Square. Yet, despite that, it has so much of interest, and I'm going to show you a few of those things. So firstly, going eastwards, here you've got a Regency period terrace. When I say Regency period, what do I mean by that? The Regency period ran from 1811 to 1820. The Prince Regent, George, later to become George IV, was the son of George III, who had been incapacitated as monarch. So his son took over the running of the country in all but name of king. Regent's Park, Regent Square, Regent's Canal, Regent Street, these are all from that period. So on one side, the eastern side of the square, you've got this lovely sweep of a Regency period terrace, all very elegant and nice. Now let's go over to the western side of the square, because it couldn't be more different. On the western side of the square, now up in scaffolding, you have 1950s-60s style buildings. There, because there was a direct hit during the war, during the Blitz, Second World War, the square received a direct hit. It lay empty or bare for well over 3 decades, and then they built this in the 70s, started in the 60s, ended in the 70s. Now look into the middle of the square, and here you see 12 giant London plane trees, the generic tree of London squares. And by the way, I keep saying the word square, but there is in fact only one square in the whole of London. That's Soho Square, but that's for another programme. So this square, Regent Square, rectangular as it is, has these giant plane trees. Why are they there? Because Thomas Cubitt in 1810, when he designed this square, he decided he wanted to plant 12 huge trees to commemorate a really important number 12 in this area. Why is it important? About a mile from here, there's an area called the Angel. Londoners know it, the Angel Islington. The Angel is now so called because it's named after an ancient inn of late medieval times called the Angel Inn, no longer standing. Why was the inn called the Angel Inn? Because the Angel Inn was built upon the monastery of the Angel, which had been there since the 12th century. Why was there a monastery there? Well, there were monasteries all over England at that time, Catholic country, etc. But why was the monastery called the Monastery of the Angel? It was called the Monastery of the Angel because it was said to have within its high altar the relic of an angel, of a bone from an angel. Story, Book of Genesis, chapter 30, Jacob wrestles with an angel, and the angel's thigh bone ends up in London 2,000 years later as a relic. 1536, dissolution of the monasteries, the relic is lost, and that's it. But Thomas Cubitt then, 5 centuries later, was really keen to commemorate that bone of the angel. So what does he do? He plants 12 huge trees here in a nearby square to where the Angel Monastery stood as a commemoration of the 12 tribes of Israel that descended from Jacob. As I've said, every square tells a story. But now I want to take you to the crowning glory of this lovely little, relatively unvisited square. And that is this, the classic K2 red telephone box. Designed by Giles Gilbert Scott in 1924, 2,400 of them were made, of which around 200 remain. Of that 200 around the country, 177, I believe, are in London. Come closer and I want to show you some of the remarkable things of this box. It is made of wrought iron. This is as solid as they come. But it is in a way so typically Victorian. It's practical, it serves a purpose. Thousands of people have used it over the years, yet it also has an elegance to it. But along with that elegance, it also has a sturdiness to it. So it sort of ticks every box of practicality, elegance and sturdiness. Red for practicality. You've got the punched crown at the top, punched in with holes there. And you've got these long fluted classical columns. Let me just show you inside, because so important a cultural icon is this to London, that now they have protection. There is a little plaque inside the box. As you can see, this telephone box, designed by Sir Giles Gilbert Scott, is a listed building. Now, surely only in London would you have a telephone box listed as a building, but it's an important thing to see. I want to say one more thing about this. If you look at the long view of this phone box, magnificent as it is, just look at the shape of it, take note of the shape, because just about half a mile from here, I'm going to tell you the history of where that shape came from. Watch closely. So here I am, half a mile away, at the grave of Sir John Soane. He was an architect. He died in 1837, but prior to his death, he designed his own tomb. And he wanted his tomb to have Corinthian, Doric, Ionic columns in it. He wanted the tomb to have a dome. And most important of all, he wanted the tomb to be different. Now, bear in mind what you saw, the red telephone box in Regent Square. Look at the central structure of the tomb. It's that red telephone box again. And just under 100 years later, Giles Gilbert Scott, entranced and stimulated by the idea of John Soane's tomb, decided to take that and use that as the telephone box. Why have I brought you here? Well, obviously to connect you to Regent Square, and obviously to connect you to the red telephone box. But primarily to make the point once again, we're in a little cemetery tucked away behind a railway station in central London. Hardly anybody ever comes here, yet it has a really, really interesting story to tell. And I should add one other thing. This is only one of 2 Grade 1 listed graves in London. For those that don't know, Grade 1 listed means it has really strong protection by the government authorities. It cannot be moved, cannot be damaged, cannot be altered, and so on. There is only one other Grade 1 listed grave in London, and that is the grave of Karl Marx in Highgate Cemetery. All the other thousands of important graves in London tend to be within buildings, like Westminster Abbey. So the grave isn't listed because it's within a listed building itself. So it's a bit of a sort of trick fact, really. So this grave is important, number 1, as the inspiration for the red K2 telephone box. Number 2, because it is Grade 1 listed. And number 3, because it's just so utterly charming. This is London. It's secret. Nobody really knows about it. It's tucked away, but with a wonderful story to tell. And if I can just give you the wider view, there you have the actual John Soane's grave, but now look the other way, and you've got there St Pancras Old Church. It is the only Romanesque period church still surviving, complete, in London. But that's another story, and that I'll take to you in another episode. Thank you.